How are you? It's me, Teacher Mike from Phuket Pals. Welcome back to another GED Social Studies video. Now in this one, we're going to be looking at the executive branch of the US federal government. This is one of the three branches that make up the federal government in the US, okay? We've already looked at the legislature or Congress in a previous video. We've also done overviews in previous videos as well of all three parts and how they interact and interplay with each other. Today we'll look at the executive branch briefly. This is basically the president, the vice president, and the agencies that enforce the laws of the United States. Okay, so the president is voted in or re-elected, either voted in as a new president or re-elected on every 4 years. So there's elections for the presidential elections every 4 years in the US. But presidents can only actually serve 2 full terms. So they can't serve any more. Even if they are very popular and they do 2 terms, they don't get a chance to serve a third 4-year term. Again, this is to prevent against a kind of an over-powerful president, or just like a kind of, I suppose like a dictatorship, some kind of democratic dictatorship going on. Now, the president himself has a lot of powers. You know, he's a very powerful man, and he can do things. He's actually the commander-in-chief of the armed forces. He's head of all of the U.S. military. He can appoint judges to the Supreme Court. But then again, although he has this power to appoint judges, Congress can actually veto that. So again, checks and balances in action. He can nominate major executive officers, and he can veto bills sent by Congress as he sees fit. Okay, so the president has lots of powers. But again, this vetoing of Congress's proposed law, checks and balances comes into play once again, because if the president, if a bill is passed in the House of Representatives and in the Senate, and then it goes to the executive for evaluation and then rubber stamping into law, if the president vetoes that and says, I don't want it, and throws it back to Congress, well, they can actually, the House of Representatives and the Senate can get together, they can have a joint vote, and if they have a 2/3 majority in favour of that bill, it will become law and override the presidential veto, which I think is a really, really cool function of American democracy. The president can also negotiate and sign treaties with other countries. Again, these treaties must be ratified by a 2/3 vote of the Senate. Okay, now remember, in a previous video, we talked about the Senate. The Senate is made up of 100 members, 2 members from each state. So these foreign treaties, if the Senate thinks that the president is acting in a way that is undesirable, they just need a 2/3 majority to prevent the treaty from being from coming into being. Okay. Yes. So there's also something called the State of the Union. Okay, the State of the Union address, which is given to a joint session of Congress every year in January, and that's when the president kind of outlines what he's been doing, successes, things that could be done better. Constitution also establishes 3 qualifications for being elected as president. 1, candidate must be 35 years old, must be a natural-born citizen of the US, and they must have lived in the country for a minimum of 14 years. Okay, so then there are just some conditions on that. Now, the vice president, he becomes the president automatically if the president is unable to complete a 4-year term. For example, if they become disabled or die or have some kind of accident, the vice president will take over the reins of the presidency for the remainder of that term until there's another presidential election. So, yeah, the vice president also serves as president of the Senate, where his or her vote may be needed to break a tie. Other vice presidential duties are assigned at the president's discretion. The Speaker of the House is third in line to succeed the president following the vice president. So you've got the president at the very top, then you have the vice president, then you have the Speaker of the House, who we talked about in our Congress video. It's a pretty powerful position. Okay, so that's about it. That's just a kind of brief overview. Pretty much everything, these are the kind of the main ideas you need to know for this part of the GED test. Okay, so just go through this video Make some notes on the main points. And again, remember that this test is not about rote learning. It's not about repeating every word I've just told you, or learning all the dates or all the presidents or who the last five speakers of the House have been. And all of this stuff is pretty irrelevant. You just have to know what the positions of power are, what power they have, and you also know you need to know what can check that power, what can balance that power in accordance with the Constitution. And outside that, as I always say to my students, don't just take these videos and think, okay, executive branch done. No, get onto Google, okay, and type in US executive branch, BBC, for example, or US executive branch, New York Times, or whatever it is, whatever quality news agency you want to look into. The Guardian is another good one I recommend. Get in there, type in the executive branch, US politics, and just start reading article after article every day about these different areas. Again, for the legislature, okay, for Congress, type in, you want to know more. So type in The Guardian. What does Congress do? What can Congress, what are the weaknesses of Congress? What are the strengths of Congress? What are the weaknesses of the presidency, the executive branch? What are the, what could be changed to make it a more effective governmental function? Okay, so again, like I said in the first video I did for this course, you have to constantly ask questions as a reader. Okay, if you want to succeed in this GED test, you need to have this kind of bird's eye overview, which I'm trying to give you in these videos, but you also need to read deeper and more closely and ask questions in your free time as well, and make notes on key terms. Okay, so that's it for this video. Have a good day. Bye-bye.